You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Bingham. Thank you for being here. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor Podcasts. Everywhere you get your podcasts, we are there. Please hit that subscribe button. Today, we've got a great interview with my good friend and NBA G League coach and player development coach, Collin Terry. So we're going to dive right into that right now. Here's the interview. All right, so with that, joining us now is a longtime friend and several-time guest, Collin Terry. Collin, thank you for being here once again.
I'm talking to one of the greatest basketball players in Skyline high school history. So I'm really excited about this.
We all know that's not true. I think I averaged less points than Skip Bayless did in his high school career. So that's definitely not true. Have you heard about that where he
No. Somehow I didn't even know he played basketball.
He did. He played in high school. I can't remember. It's like he averaged like 3 points a game or something like that. And somehow Jalen Rose found out. Mm-hmm. And when they were like going at it on ESPN First Take like years ago, Jalen brought that up and Skip got really upset. But yeah.
Oh, really?
Apparently Skip didn't play much and I didn't either, but I'm not self-conscious about it. I was 16, 17 years old, so it's all good. But Collin. So Collin is he's an assistant coach for the Greensboro Swarm, which for those that don't know, that is the G League team for the Charlotte Hornets. So the first question I have is, have you ever met Michael Jordan?
So great question. I haven't technically met him yet.
Have you seen him around?
Yes, he is. So
That's
he
cool.
is around. He doesn't come around a lot. I think it's because, he's got a lot going on his plate. And I think he does a really good job of just, I don't think he really wants to be like a distraction and things like that. But yes, one of the cool things about this experience was the opportunity to go to multiple Hornets games.
Yeah.
And typically when you go to a Hornets game, I would be near like the Hornets bench. And when Michael comes, they typically pull out like an extra 3 or 4 chairs at the end of the bench. And so there was a couple games this season where he was there, but he didn't sit on the bench, which he normally does. He was, I guess, up in the suite or, somewhere else. So when you're Michael Jordan, you own the team, you can do kind of whatever you want.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's interesting. Like I saw just yesterday, I saw some posts from the Kentucky Derby. He went, or not to Kentucky Derby, but the Grand Prix. It was the Formula One Grand Prix in Miami.
Yeah.
And even other celebrities kind of swarm around him. No pun intended with your team name, the Swarm, but they swarm around him. Tom Brady, David Beckham, Dwayne Wade, they like kind of clamor for his attention. Like he's that big of a celebrity. It's kind of wild actually. So,
I mean, I think he still has to be up there as like one of the most famous people on the planet. And he hasn't even played for how long, Sean?
20, well, if you count the Wizards, it's like 19 years, but if you don't count the Wizards, it's been like 25. So
but crazy. I'm sure at some point I will, have the opportunity to cross paths. The plan is for me to go back out there in June to Charlotte and help out there. So I'm sure it'll happen at some point.
What's the season? So is the season basically the same for the G League as it is for the NBA?
Yeah. So the NBA team plays 82 game season. We play 50.
Okay.
And so, but the cool thing is we're very integrated with what Charlotte does. So this year, I believe we had 4 or 5 Hornets players play on our team at different points of the season.
That's pretty cool.
They really, really utilize it. And it's a really cool how connected we are all under the Hornets. So,
So what's your take? And for those that don't know from previous episodes that Collin's been on, he played for the University of Utah, was actually a very good college player. What is your take now on college basketball? And all that's going on there. Cause a lot of guys like, for instance, LaMelo, who maybe we should ask if you've ever met him, skipped college, but had to do their year outside of high school. What's your take on college basketball just in general?
I think it's going through a big transitional phase. I
Mm-hmm.
think a bigger impact than that is just all that name, image, and likeness things that
Yep.
are going on.
Yeah.
I think that is a big game changer as far as the major programs, and then the programs that, aren't in those big time conferences and things like that. I
Yeah.
think that is as much of a challenge as anything else,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And so I think that's a big piece to it. I think college is actually still a great place to go. You're seeing some guys bypass college and they'll go to Australia and play professionally over there, which can be a good option. And then additionally to that, you're seeing them. The NBA G League has done a really good job. It's really grown. I don't think your listeners probably know, but 56% of the players playing in the playoffs or on playoff rosters have played in the G League at some point.
Wow.
So it is heavily, heavily used.
Yeah.
And the talent in the G League now is off the charts. So, for example, I coached against two-time NBA All-Star Isaiah Thomas this year.
Wow.
He had a
Yeah.
48-point game against us. And the funny thing about it is, a week later, the Charlotte Hornets signed him to a 10-day, and then they ended up signing him to the a rest of the season contract. So you have like notable guys that you
Yeah.
would know, and even probably the average person would know, who are playing in the NBA G League, because it's such a great pathway
Yeah.
to get to the NBA.
Well, especially for, with regards to some of the stars, guys like Isaiah Thomas, who are recovering from an injury, need to go kind of like prove themselves again, or just kind of get back into the swing of things. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And the teams really utilize it for guys like him. I mean, I can't remember what season it was, but I know even Steph Curry went to the G League. He didn't play any games, but
Yeah.
he went to Santa Cruz, which is the G League team for the Golden State Warriors, and just practice with them, because the Warriors, with an 82 game season, veteran team,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably not going to be practicing a lot. So it's really grown. Even since I was last a coach in it with the Boston Celtics G League team,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just a couple years ago. It's really grown, and
Yeah.
things like that. So, but I think college, to really answer your question, I think college is a really good place to go still, for a couple reasons. Number one, to grow up, to mature, which is really important in being a professional in general.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very important. The second piece is the branding aspect, your personal brand. You go to Kentucky, you go to Kansas, you go to
Yeah.
Duke, you go to North Carolina. We're actually located 45 maybe minutes or an hour away tops from Duke and North Carolina,
Yep.
out there. And I was lucky enough to be able to go down there, and that's like being on an NBA team. I mean,
Yeah.
the fan base, the notoriety. Every game you're going to be on national television. Every
Yep.
game there's going to be 10 to 15 NBA scouts. And
Yep.
so that way, if you are a big name player who's on that NBA path, you go to one of these big programs, and by the time you get drafted, there's a lot of people who are going to know who you already are.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go, unless you're like LaMelo, right? Unless you go, a lot of those guys that go to the G League team, or they go to Australia, that don't have the PR of some of these other players have, they get drafted and people don't really know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Interesting. So with regards to that, by the way, have you ever met LaMelo?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went to training camp with them. So,
Wow.
and it was really, really cool, as well as they wanted us to I can't remember exactly what, I think it was, we had just barely started our season or pretty close to it. They wanted us to go up there and practice with Melo and Jalen McDaniels and some of their other players for a few days to help them get their conditioning and stuff like that. So, it's really, really cool, really great experience for sure.
That's
getting
really
around
cool.
all the Hornets players and coaches.
What about LeVar? Did you meet LeVar Ball?
He came to our first game.
Did he?
But I didn't get a chance. Yeah. So one of the players I was actually personally responsible for this year as a coaching staff, whether it's the NBA and the G League, they kind of give you like 3 to 4 players that you need to watch film with them, pull the film, and you're kind of responsible for them, even though it's a team setting.
Yeah.
And LiAngelo was one of the players that I was assigned to.
Oh, wow.
And so he actually had a pretty good year for us. And the first game, LeVar was there. I think he came to the first 2 games that we had.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get a chance to meet him, but I worked with LiAngelo all year. And what an amazing guy. I mean, he is the dad of that family, LeVar. I know he kind of maybe did some things to get PR and stuff, but whatever he did, his boys are awesome. Like they're great. They're fun to be around. They're super coachable. They just want to win. They have all of the right attributes it takes to be a great individual and team player.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do you think Jello has a spot in the NBA?
I think he's got to keep working. He's a really good 3-point shooter, and his ability to come off the bench or just be ready to play at any moment is unbelievable. Like he can come in and is crazy as it sounds, that like if you're not a LeBron James or the Dwayne Wade or one of these, big name guys that we will talk about and debate about and stuff like that, being able to come into a game right off the bench and be able to hit an open 3 or whatever, that's not easy.
No,
that is not easy. And he's always ready to play. You can throw him in at any point and that guy's going to come off and hit a 3-point shot. So I think he needs to continue to work on other aspects of his game. But I do think his ability to be prepared at any moment to come in and hit shots, is really, really a great thing that he has going for him.
That's cool. That's really cool. By the way, just as you were talking, I realized I've got the Tripio thing. Usually it's my podcast logo back here, and I didn't have time. I like swap it out when I'm doing podcasts versus when I'm doing regular work calls, because this is where I sit. So sorry about that, everybody. Little plug for Tripio.
Tripio.
Maybe one day I'll be a full-time podcaster. I need a few more people to listen, but
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. So, okay, Collin, I got a handful of questions about the NBA and the playoffs. I sent you the list. I only gave you like 15 minutes to prep, so hopefully you're ready. But it just got announced today, not officially, but it looks like officially, Nikola Jokic is going to win his 2nd consecutive MVP. What are your thoughts on that? Is he deserving? Who should be the MVP? Embiid's going to feel, slighted. What's your take on that?
Yeah. So I think that Jokic earns it again. Mm-hmm. The thing, he's good. He is a really good player. And his game, as you know, is built on a lot of other things besides elite athleticism.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think with him, what makes him so special and why I would give him the edge over Embiid in not only the MVP race, but also right now just head to head as a player, if I had to pick one, is Jokic is amazingly good at making people around him better.
Yeah.
His ability to handle the ball, his ability to pass, his ability to make decisions, something that a lot of, the average fan might not know about is just his screening angles, his ability to screen and roll to the rim, how he gets his teammates open just by consistently doing that, his ability to post up, where post up is kind of like the dinosaurs, a thing from the past that just doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
Some of that is kind of rule based, as well as style of play. And so, yeah, I mean, with what he's done without Jamal Murray, who it feels like hasn't played for like 3 years now. It just seems like it's been a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And who was really playing well and really doing a lot of great things in the league. For them to be as competitive and successful they are without somebody that's at least an NBA All-Star in Jamal Murray is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
You know, with regards to that, you know, making others better, it is interesting though that obviously it's a regular season award. It was already voted on, you know, weeks ago. But you look at the Heat Sixers series, and the Heat got out to a 2-0 lead. It looked like they were dominating. Embiid comes back for game 3, doesn't even play well, but just his presence on the court, and all of a sudden the series is now tied 2-2. And he hasn't even played that great, but just his presence on the court made everybody around him better as well. So I don't think he has the same passing ability and things like that Jokic has, but it is interesting that someone of that caliber, you know, so I'm sure Embiid's going to feel slighted, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, but I think you make a good point, is where Embiid has the advantage and really changed the game over Jokic is on the defensive side of the floor.
Yeah.
Like he makes everybody around him significantly better on the defensive side of the floor. Yeah. And that's not as flashy as the no-look passes or, you know, all that other stuff that happens on the offensive end. But that is something that's really important. And that is something that I feel like Embiid has over Jokic. Yeah. I think Jokic is a solid a rim protector, but not in the same league as like a Rudy Gobert.
No,
things like that. So,
with regards to that, by the way, I'm going to skip ahead. I've got my list over here that I sent you, but you just mentioned Rudy, so I just want to skip to the Jazz part of our discussion. There's rumors that obviously the Jazz are underachieving, right? And then there's rumors now that Rudy, he's kind of denying it, but I'm sure it's true. Personally, I believe it's true. He's saying, look, it's either me or Donovan, pick one. I did a full podcast about how I think the Jazz should pick Donovan. I think Rudy is more easily replaced. I don't know what Hassan Whiteside's contract is. I'm sure I could look that up real quick, but we had him on the super cheap. To me, like, you just give Hassan Whiteside more minutes and he can replace Rudy Gobert quite nicely. You know, he's not going to be Rudy Gobert, but he's going to be pretty close. And then you go trade Rudy in exchange for maybe an all-star level scorer, like someone, not like a superstar, but like someone like a DeMar DeRozan or a Zach LaVine, right? Someone of that caliber who's like barely an all-star, and get them to join Donovan. To me, that would be the best solution if it's possible, but I don't know. I want to know your take on the Jazz. What happened to them? Does Quinn need to go? Does Donovan need to go? Does Rudy need to go? What's going to help the Jazz turn it around?
Well, those are all really good questions. And I'll be quite frank. I haven't watched the Jazz a lot this season.
Yeah.
We were really, really busy with our own team. And then every Hornets game, we're watching them because we're running the same offensive and defensive concepts and principles as they are.
Yeah.
But on the outside looking in a little bit and just watching them in the playoffs, I think Donovan's, like you said, Donovan's an all-star. His ability to get his own shot and at times make plays for others and things like that is there's not a lot of those guys in the NBA. I feel like Rudy's ability to protect the rim is the best in the league and on the planet for sure.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Okay. I think one thing that would help the Jazz more than anything is getting a really good wing type player, a really good two-way, 3-and-D,
like a Paul George type.
Yeah. And I'm not even, I mean, there's only one Paul George, right? I'm not even saying to that level, but I'm just saying somebody 6'8", 6'9", that can handle the ball, that can make plays to a certain extent for themselves and other people.
I did say in that same podcast, if they could somehow package, which this would never happen, no team's going to go for it, but if you could somehow package Bogdanovich and Clarkson in exchange for somebody like that, that would be ideal. But nobody's going to go for that because they'd lose the trade, So, but I agree with you. I mean, in an ideal world, that would be great. I just don't know how you get that.
Yeah, and I think the challenge for the Jazz is
you could get it though if you trade Rudy and have Hassan Whiteside replace him. That's my point.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a scenario for sure. I think one of the challenges the Jazz have, and again, I haven't watched them as much as you or your listeners have. But if you think about it, their front court for the NBA doesn't have the height and length that a lot of other teams have. So, for instance, look at Dallas, right? Luka 6'9". Okay, that's your point guard.
Yeah,
Jalen Brunson, I think, might be 6'3", but he's built like a rock. I mean,
greatest player ever against the Jazz.
Yes, I mean he is built like a rock. Then you look at Dorian Finney-Smith, who I think is very underrated as far as a 3-and-D guy. Is a really good defender. I think he's probably anywhere between 6'7" to 6'9". I'd have to look that up. Long, athletic, can hit threes, great in transition. Somebody that you can put on Donovan Mitchell or a Paul George if you're playing the Clippers. I think somebody along those lines would really help the Jazz if you didn't make any changes. I think that would be a greater impact maybe than anything else if there was a way that you could do it.
So here's a question, just with your experience working with the professionals, why is it that a team like the Jazz, or I can think back to like the Atlanta Hawks of a few years ago, they can go and win 60 games in the regular season. They can be number 1 in point differential, number 1 in offensive efficiency, number 3 in defensive efficiency, or whatever, just total domination for the regular season, right? And come playoff time, it's just like a totally different ball game, and they can't get out of the first or second round. Why is that? What changes? Obviously, the intensity level picks up. Like, what else is there that the regular fan doesn't see?
No, that's a really good question, and I think there's a couple things at play. The first thing is you kind of talked about the intensity skyrockets.
Yeah,
the Jazz have one of the best home court advantages, I feel like, in the NBA.
Yeah,
it could be game 51 in the middle of January or whatever. It's going to be sold out. The crowd is phenomenal. Everybody's super into it. I see your posts at Jazz games and things like that. You're super into it and all that other stuff. And so I think that's a big thing. So the Jazz, and I think it's safe to say that a lot of teams that are coming to play the Jazz, a lot of times will go to Phoenix or LA after on that road trip. And so they may be a little bit more excited to go to those places outside of Salt Lake City. And I love Salt Lake City. It's where I'm from. And it's the best place ever. So I think that's a piece. But what the biggest component to this whole thing that we're talking about, to me, is the game slows down. It becomes way more half court, where the Jazz, the Hawks a few years ago thrived in having a lot of transition opportunities. Things like that, a lot more open 3-point shots, but it really slows down. And then the great differentiator in the playoffs, as we both know, is who has the most superstars, right? It becomes a superstar game more than anything else, because everybody knows your plays. Everybody knows what you're going to run. So it comes down to, can you get a great shot and make it, or can I get a great shot and make it. And that's a big differentiator among the all-stars and the superstars. The superstars can get their own shot and make it at any point, at any time. And there's not very many of those guys.
No, there's not.
There's only maybe, I would say off the top of my head, anywhere like probably 10 of those guys.
Yep.
And a lot of those times, a lot of those players are on teams that are located in LA, whether it's the Clippers, the Lakers, or whoever it may be. So I think that is the biggest thing that impacts everything when it comes to the playoffs and team success.
No, that's actually really good. So with that, you say that, there's 10 or so guys. Who would be your first team all NBA this year? And I don't know how much you had the chance to, obviously you're very focused on the G League and then the Hornets. But who's your first team all NBA?
So I think first team all NBA this year, point guard would be Luka. I really like Luka. It's hard to argue against somebody that's 6'8", 6'9". I think Devin Booker has had a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
I think the other person that you could put into that as well is a Jason Tatum, with the transformation that the Celtics had, the second part of the season.
Yep.
I think he can be your 3-man, Giannis as a 4, and then Jokic as a 5. Okay.
I like that. So no LeBron, no KD. They obviously didn't play enough games probably to qualify, but where does LeBron stack up? I already know your opinion of LeBron is maybe similar to mine, but where does LeBron stack up into it's LeBron's an all-time great. We both can agree on that, but we both, don't put him ahead of MJ is all I'm getting at. But where does he stack up in today's league? Like if you're starting a team tomorrow, if the Hornets give you the keys to the kingdom and they say, hey, we need a title this year and this year only, we don't care about the year after that, we need it for this year, who are you taking with your first pick?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a really good question. That's a good question. I think if I was to create an NBA team at this point, I think my first pick would be KD.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's hard to go against KD as far as that's concerned. The reason why I would take KD over LeBron is I think LeBron is actually better in several areas than KD is. I think he's a better playmaker, better passer, probably a better rebounder for sure too. But if I'm going into the playoffs or the finals and I have a guy that's essentially 7 foot that can hit threes no matter who's guarding him, in the post or in the mid post, things of that nature. I also do think that KD is a better defender when healthy and when you need him to be than people realize with all that height and length.
Yep.
So I think that's a tough question, but I would lean more towards that. I really like guys, and I'm probably honestly biased. I like guys that are good 3-point shooters.
Yep.
Especially in today's game, and especially again being 7 foot. I think that's a total game changer for sure.
No, it's tough to argue against that. I don't disagree. I would maybe lean slightly towards Giannis just because KD's attitude and his injury proneness aren't my favorite, but it's tough to argue against KD. So, okay. So 2 more questions and we got to wrap up. One is real simple. If you're following these playoffs, who do you think is going to win East, West? Who's the finals matchup going to be? And who do you give the nod to, I guess? Who's your favorite?
Yeah. So even though the Warriors have lost 2 games and things like that, to me, it's going to be Phoenix and Golden State. And man, it's hard to go against Golden State Warriors. Especially with Jordan Poole, the way that he's developed and come on as a player throughout the season.
It's incredible how good he's gotten.
But he is a perfect example of the NBA G League. He was in the G League. He embraced it. He continued to work. He got better. And the G League is a big reason why he's been able to take off the way he has.
Wow.
Because he was down there. And like I said, he really embraced it. He worked on his game, and he's somebody that really utilized it in a way to help him on his path now. So, with that whole thing and everything they've got going on. So I would say Phoenix and Golden State in the Western Conference Finals.
Okay.
It's hard to go against a healthy Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, like I said, that team and everything like that. So I would take Golden State coming out of the West.
Okay.
I still like the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee Bucks.
Because they don't have Middleton right now, but they still are getting it done.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly. You would probably know better than I do when Middleton would be back.
He might come back in the conference finals, but that would be earliest best case scenario. So they've got to get past Boston without him.
Yeah.
And then probably face the Heat, I would guess, even though that Sixers Heat series is 2-2. I'll probably take the Heat to win that, but he might come back versus the Heat.
I would say Milwaukee and Miami as well. But to me, the big X factor is who's going to stop Giannis.
Yeah, nobody.
I mean, Miami's a really good organization, one of the tops in the NBA, which is why they're consistently going deep in the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
But they don't have a lot of rim protection. They don't. No. I think Bam might be 6'7", maybe 6'8", and so that's not that. To me, that situation isn't a great matchup for the Miami Heat as well. So I would go Golden State, Milwaukee in the finals, and I would probably take the Golden State Warriors to win it all.
Yeah. What's funny is I find myself kind of rooting for the Warriors.
Really?
Yeah, I know it sounds crazy because everyone hates them, but to me, Draymond's the most dislikable, unlikable guy, and he's like, he's like fourth, maybe even fifth fiddle on that team now. Like Clay, Steph, and Jordan Poole are for sure more important than Draymond, in my opinion. Then you could argue Draymond fourth and Andrew Wiggins fifth, even though Wiggins' stats across the board are better than Draymond's. But so I don't really care. I don't care to hate a guy that's like, distantly important compared to what he used to be. And then they don't have Kevin Durant, and so they're not like this mega super team. It's like back to their roots that they built through the draft, and through the G League with Jordan Poole and stuff. So I don't know, kind of find myself rooting for them. Clay and Steph are very likable. I also like the Suns though, and I've been on record not liking CP3 for most of his career because I feel like he whines and flops most of his career. But he also is one of the all-time greats, and he's like a man on a mission to get a title. I feel like he deserves a title. I feel like everywhere he goes, teams get better. And that's not even a feeling. That's like a factual, provable stat that every team he goes to gets significantly better once he's on the team. So I feel like he's done what he needs to win a title. So I kind of wouldn't mind if he got one as well, even though I don't personally like him that much.
Yeah. And CP3, like, you're right. Every team he goes to not only gets better, but way, way better. I mean, way, way better.
Yeah.
His leadership and things like that. But back to Golden State real quick is the fun thing about Golden State is, yes, they have all-time great shooters. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, I think are the best two shooters in NBA history.
Yeah.
Along with Larry Bird and some other guys that you could put into that mix. But they use Ray Allen, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they play major team basketball.
Yep.
That ball does not stick, and their spacing is always really good. Their IQ of just, hey, let me just randomly set a screen here, a back pick here. Like Steph Curry will just randomly set a back pick for somebody, which causes confusion, possible switch, space out, get a wide open three. Like their decision making, and that's one thing a lot of people don't realize, I think, about Draymond is, Draymond, I don't disagree with your assessment, but Draymond's impact on the defensive side of the floor is fantastic, and he's
big,
maybe 6'6". And then what he is really good at doing is generating offense. So he'll get a rebound, he'll push it in transition, and then he'll dribble towards a Klay Thompson or a Steph Curry, and his decision-making, his playmaking, his passing ability is actually incredibly good. And so a lot of times he'll see something and he'll like signal to Steph and he'll bounce it right behind and set a quick screen, so Steph gets a wide open three. So those are things that may not come up on the stat sheet.
Yep, I agree with that.
Things like that, but are incredibly valuable and allows those guys to be who they are, especially on the offensive end of the floor. So really, they are really, really good at reading the defense and then immediately knowing, okay, the defense is guarding me this way. Here's our counter.
Yep.
And they just kill you. Things like that.
So, okay, last question. I've got this timer counting down.
Sure.
I don't have the upgraded version of Zoom, so we've got a minute left. So it's going to kick us off. So last question. You have to win a title right now. Okay. I'm not talking next season, 2 seasons, 10 seasons from now. Right now, do you want Chris Paul as your point guard or Luka Doncic?
Chris Paul, mainly because of just the tons and tons of experience he has.
That's exactly how I feel.
If I could pick one right now, as far as a team, I would go Luka, because you just can't. 6'8", 6'9", great passer, great scorer, continuing to get better. But this year, I believe, was the first year that Luka won a playoff series. I mean,
I think it is.
Chris Paul has seen anything and everything a million times, and that's a huge piece in the playoffs. Like we talked about earlier, is not only is it having all, superstars or all-stars, but also having highly experienced players, even if they're role players. So that experience is everything to me.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. We are down in like the last thing. So I'm going to sign off here, but dude, thank you for joining us. This has been fun.
Loved it, Sean. Great to see you, man.
Let's do it again. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out STB Sports Take.com. Simply the best in sports.
'Cause we are